Hello everyone and welcome to Hill Street. Today's story is, if your radio makes strange sounds, it's best to ignore it. By Real Dale. If you end up enjoying this story, please leave a like. And if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. Now, let's get to this nightmare. Silver eyes in the dark. The image is burned into my brain. I'll give you my real name, Brian Matthews. It's not like you can find me and kill me or anything. You won't have time. The nurses that shuffle in and out of my room tell me they just want me comfortable. The doctor tells me the proton therapy didn't work. The mass has metastasized. They've never seen anything like it. It took 26 years to take me. They tell me I can't leave. I'm too weak to get up and walk to the bathroom. I don't think I'll be going anywhere. Before the big day, I need to share something. I've never told anyone about this. Nobody. If you ever pick up a stray radio signal, don't let curiosity get the best of you. Just let it go. Turn your radio off. Go on with your life. You never know how it can change you. It's 1996. Tucumcari, New Mexico. Is desolation made flesh? It was like someone tossed a few buildings and a road out on the map and moved on to better places. By this time, I'd been a mechanic at a little shop for 3 years. I kept to my business and went to work and went home. Didn't really socialize. This was a pretty good setup for me. I'm just not really a people person. The desert is quiet. No people. I could ride my old dirt bike out there. Put a mesa or two between me and the highway. The only sound there is nature. As you crouch to look at a bug on a cactus, you get the feeling that no other man has stepped here before. The way it was before pre-modern humans even stepped foot on this land. The sounds are natural. Sounds of the earth, the rustle of mesquite, tiny animals skittering across the sand, dust unsettled by wind. You can see 60 miles in any direction, only sparse plateaus to block your view. That day, I watched a hulking purple thunderhead form in the way off distance. Lightning sparking around its periphery, the thunderhead had moved east away from the sun, towards the north. I stopped atop the mountain. My battery-powered radio squawked on the ground as I pointed the homemade directional antenna around. Listening, nothing but static. I sigh. The rain would be quite welcome. There isn't much to listen to out here. Just an old country channel, some evangelical station, and lots of Spanish music. I don't speak Spanish, but I felt like I knew the top hits by now and was looking for something new. The Walmart I shopped at was in Clovis, about 19 minutes southeast. Most of the drive I either threw in a cassette or scanned through the stations, looking for something, anything but country or Spanish music. Sometimes I'd get a whiff of a certain rock station, depending on the weather. At just the right mile marker, I could tune to that channel and rock for a couple of miles. It was like a short-term companion, there for a while, and then on to the next lonely driver. But I hadn't gone to the mountain to hear some Butthole Surfers or Weezer. I was searching, almost compulsively. I was on my bi-weekly trip to get groceries. I hated the place in town. I had worn out my Eagles' Greatest Hits tape, and I was looking for something new. The radio was turned to 105.1, trying to catch that rock station again. I still wasn't quite in range yet. I started to hear something coming through the static. That was weird. I'd never heard anything out here before. It grew more clear. some strange ambient mix or something, out of rhythm, humming in wavering tones, undulating like whale songs or something. Must be some experimental channel or something, I thought at the time. I tuned to a different channel. The same odd patternless ambience was playing. I kept tuning. Every channel was playing it. I said, screw it, and popped in the Eagles tape again. I hit play. The ambience was there again. I turned up the radio, listening for patterns in the sound. There weren't any, but I could distinguish 10 or 11 distinct voices, all overlapping and changing pitch and tone at odd intervals. It must have been magnetic interference, something strong. Maybe a government secret underground project or something. I was about to turn the radio off, but something stirred within me. Something lonesome and primordial. The odd patternless sounds became music. Abyssal wails from a place deep and bottomless. It buried itself into my mind. The desolation in the sound. I felt myself drifting. It was a song now. Patterns emerged, intricate and beautiful. But there was a hunger there too, hidden deep within. Not only could I hear them, I could feel them. Like another sense I had just acquired. I could feel them pass through me, and when they did, I could feel their texture, their weight, their sharpness. We don't really know the universe around us. Not at all. Sure, we can touch, smell, crap like that, but the universe can experience itself in an infinite number of ways. That day, I was expanded, realizing I was not free. I was locked in this body, stuck in it, a meat casket, and I, the real I, was ripening within. Little sparks in the meat in my head, nothing more. I wanted to get out, to leave this useless meat behind. Then the music stopped, leaving only static in its wake. I turned around, crossing the median immediately. Flattening the dry yellow grass that grew there, I drove up and down that highway until nightfall. I just searched. I would have done anything to get that feeling back. I can't even describe it, but it was like losing a limb or becoming blind all of a sudden. I didn't even get groceries that night. There was a hole in my skull where that feeling had been. It throbbed and ached like torn flesh. I slept on the side of that road, waking up in fits, wondering where the music had gone, oscillating between furious anger that the song had left and pathetic sobbing fits. I felt the hole every day since then, when I worked, when I ate, when I slept. I even feel it now, the way someone feels about a long-dead relative. I continued my search for a month, driving out on the highway every day. Every day, I came home empty-handed. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was getting that feeling back. The cosmic numbness couldn't be all there was. The grief lasted another 3 months. I stopped doing things I enjoyed. I didn't even turn on the TV when I got home. I lost 30 pounds. I just couldn't make myself eat. I no longer went searching for the station. I swore off the radio entirely. I couldn't avoid the road, so when I passed the section where I heard the song, I would breathe slowly and ignore the compulsion to turn the dial. At some point decided I didn't need it. It wasn't even real. The whole thing had been some hallucination or delusion. One day, the feeling spell completely worn off. I realized that I never felt that way about a song. Never has a song sent me reeling, changing the trajectory of my entire life the way a long-term relationship ending would. The past few months had been a cloud of despair and anger. It's still hazy now. I got my crap together. What the hell had gone on? When I thought of the song now, it was patternless, powerless. The great rapturous emotions I had weren't even embers anymore. That's when my real search started. From the mountain, I could see forever. A patchwork of yellow and green. I could see Tucumcari Lake and the town itself. But best of all, I could see I-40, miles and miles of it. I pointed my antenna around a while. I'd find him, her, even if I had to stay up here all night. I had figured some things out since my reawakening. The station wasn't in a fixed location. If it was, I should have been able to pick it up in my car or that little stretch of the highway. Either that, or the station had been taken down. I hoped it was not the latter. I heard about this story of a community whose televisions periodically would be hijacked. A strange image and voice would come on and rant and rave about whatever, always late at night. Stories started to spread at HOA meeting, barbecues, and church. People start realizing that they have all seen this thing on TV. The image was a big white triangle on a black screen. The mark of the devil, the hijacker claimed. Some people start looking out for it at night. They find it. The whole town goes into panic. Some think the devil is coming. Some think it's UFOs. Others believe it's a killer roaming around, hijacking signals. They are taken to the streets. The sheriff has to get control over his town, so he mobilizes the deputies, all 3 of them. It takes no time at all for them to catch the culprit, sitting in a Wendy's parking lot, Frosty in hand when they arrest him. Turns out, it's some crazy guy who drives around all night using his mobile amateur broadcast setup to take over people's TVs. Somebody must have been driving around broadcasting that insane music, the same as that crazy guy. I really hoped I was on the money. I followed the snaking shape of the interstate with the antenna again. Static. More static. The night wore on with no updates. Not so much as a shift in the static. I could see tiny headlights gliding down the tiny interstate, making their way to their tiny destinations. I started to think I wasn't going to find anything tonight. I decided I would wait a few hours until about 3 a.m. and then pack up. I stood up and grabbed the antenna. I rolled the cord up around the radio, starting to unplug it. When I heard the static change slightly, I unrolled the antenna and pointed it at the interstate. Sure enough, there was a faint signal. I tempered my expectations. It was very, very, very unlikely that I would find it on my first night. I got close to the speakers. There was something lost in that static, but something unidentifiable. I put my ear to the speakers. Very faint, almost imperceptible, but it was the song, for sure. All at once, the static resolved and the blast of sound almost sent me over the edge of the biscuit and down the side of the mountain. I caught myself, snatched the volume knob, turned the sound off. I crammed in the earplugs I brought. I turned the volume back up, put my hand over the radio. I could feel the warbling pattern in the vibrations. I pointed the antenna away from the interstate. The vibrations lost rhythm. Static. I pointed it back at the interstate. The vibrations returned to their previous state. Jesus H. Christ, I found it. I almost died getting down the mountain. I hopped onto my dirt bike at the fence just outside the entrance to the mountain and kicked rocks. The bike isn't strictly street legal, but I didn't care. I must have looked like a straight up nut. A guy on a dirt bike, no helmet, weaving through traffic at breakneck speeds, and between his thighs, his right hand firmly pressed to the speaker. Now the signal was steady. There were only a few cars on the road that night. I passed the last one, maybe 5 miles back. Up ahead in the distance, I saw shimmering taillights, 2 red eyes in the dark. The signal had been steady for a few miles now. No real way to tell if that was the car or not. So I slowed down and put a mile between the car and I. The signal did fade slightly. Screw it, I thought. I pulled up on the car, getting in behind it. In my tiny headlight beam, I could see that it was a Chevy truck, an 80s model with the beveled taillight and the chunky square front. But it was a single cab, only enough room for a single seat, nowhere to put a bunch of radio equipment, no antenna on top. Another strange thing was I could not see through the back windshield. Usually, even if it is tinted, you can see something. It was just a void up there. I followed a distance, but the station never lost signal. I took the chance. I was braver by far back then. I hadn't yet learned the depths that the world had. Those dark corners, cracks and crevices where black dreadful things hide. I got up beside the truck and looked into the window. It was also completely black, opaque even. I looked at the windshield. It didn't even shine like glass should, like someone spray painted it. By this point, the driver should have been pretty tripped out, but the truck kept on at the same speed, perfectly in between the lines. The right blinker came on. I could see an exit ramp coming. The window cracked open, and a pale hand emerged. It gestured for me to follow. I did. We ended up on a dusty country road, far away from civilization. The sweat from my palms made the acceleration slippery. We got to the railroad crossing, and the truck just stopped, dust whipping around it. We sat there a long moment. I was waiting on the driver to get out. They didn't. I got off my bike and started forward towards the truck, palms dripping sweat, my tongue smashed up against my teeth. I made a wide arc, keeping some distance between me and the truck. I stopped. Nothing happened. The truck just sat there. "Anybody in there?" I yelled. Stupid question, but what else was I supposed to ask? I took out one of my earplugs. The radio just played static. I wondered if I lost the signal, and now I was just facing down this random driver. The driver door popped open like a can of sardines, just enough that a thin line of red light escaped from within, projecting onto the dirt. I was breathing hard now. I wanted to just hop on my bike and get the hell out of there, but I didn't. Instead, I approached the door. I grabbed the edge and pulled it open. Some things about the world are best left to those dark corners. I know that now. I can't even accurately describe the contents of the car. The memories are somehow fragmented, like a torn up picture. I remember the smell, like a 1,000-year-old jockstrap pee and crap, all mingled. It seemed to waft out onto the ground, heavier than the air around it. I thought that the guy had a mobile station set up in the truck. That was partly true. At first, he was facing the road. By this point, I had fallen back on the dirt, my elbows locked, holding me up. Then, he turned to me. Over the years, I've been able to piece this memory back together. But even now, when I recall him, my body shudders uncontrollably. My lizard brain tells my body that we are in danger. My throat gets dry. I stand and pace. The eyes, gray and mirror shiny in their sockets, like two ball bearings. Red veins crawled up from the sockets and pulsed, somehow feeding these metal balls. A metal loop antenna was sunk halfway into the back of his head. Only a crescent shape was visible because the rest was inside him somehow. The same red veins crawled up the metal of the antenna. The metal throbbed like real tissue at the junctions between it and the flesh. The cab light was covered in those veins, casting a red light out onto the night. A voice came from my right, from my dirt bike. "Chosen," an electric voice said. The man-thing's teeth chattered in tune with the voice on the radio. I remember wondering what it was. It answered the question in my head. "Conduit," it said. "You've heard them now, whispering in their infant sleep. They writhe and moan in the stars. I transmit. You come," it said. The rest is like when you go under for surgery and people tell you the funny things you said when you woke up. I woke up in a ditch. Some guy yelling at me. The hospital gave me fluids. I've been out there 3 days before someone found my dirt bike and then me. The bike had started to grow, a strange red vine-like material on the crankcase, and any part of it that was metal. I left it there. I was never comfortable around radio since then. I learned everything I could about them, just so I'd know how to avoid the waves. Something about the idea of waves traveling through me at all times caused my skin to crawl. I left New Mexico, moved up to Colorado, never got married. Being a terminal shut in will do that. I pulled out the antenna on my Wi-Fi router and only used the Ethernet with a cord on the little desktop I could afford. I turned on my mobile data just for this post. I'll be turning it off for good once I'm done. They won't let me leave. All they can do is make me comfortable. Not long now, they say, between doses of morphine. A mass is growing inside me. They can't figure out what it is, but I'm far too gone at this point. I can feel it crawling inside me, like vines strangling my every organ. I dream of writhing things, a mass of slippery eel bodies with hammer-shaped heads and tiny prenatal limbs. They are awash in brilliant purple and blues and glittering yellow mist. Their bodies covered in red veins, pulsing. Star-shaped eyes, slitted pupils. They look at me. They salivate. My God, the way they look at me. They don't see me. They see my soul. I see it too. Slowly turning red.